James Bond is a world-famous British icon. It's reckoned that over 1 billion people around the world have seen at least one James Bond film. Created by the writer Ian Fleming, he is the quintessential Secret Service agent. He's the man that's got it all: the gadgets, the guns, the women, and the cars.
Ian Fleming was the celebrated English author who wrote James Bond, and in doing so, drew upon some really unique experience he had in Royal Naval Intelligence. Things like Operation GoldenEye and a couple other, top secret projects that he oversaw. So he wrote about exactly what he knew.
I think with so many American heroes, it was time to have a quintessentially British hero, and James Bond has fitted that bill, with his Union Jack parachute, but also, there with the gun, the wry smile, very well turned out, quintessentially upper middle class Englishman, and his, his tastes, his prejudices, his fighting the wicked enemies. He is totally English.
Ian Fleming wrote his James Bond novels on a 30-year-old typewriter in his villa GoldenEye on the island of Jamaica. To try and understand the character he created, I'm going to indulge in a bit of the Bond lifestyle myself, starting with the guns. One of the key premises of Bond is his so-called license to kill. This seemingly gave him nearly free rein to dispatch his enemies in cold blood, and in the course of 24 films, Bond has killed nearly 400 people. When not behind his desk working on the latest scheme to thwart the Nazis, Fleming immersed himself in London's nightlife, and with the German bombs raining down, he lived a life of drinking, dining, and women. Like the character of Bond that he would go on to create, Fleming was not much of a one-woman man, and his own experiences would go on to provide the templates for many of the women that Bond encounters in the books. However, the way he portrayed such women did, on occasion, land him in hot water.
One definite connection between Bond and Fleming is their attitude towards women. Both of them were fairly mechanical, were fairly ruthless. Yes, there was charm, yes, there was lovemaking, but these weren't romances. These were people who left the hotel room early in the morning. And that's something that Fleming, at least, was pleased to see was carried through in the early Bond, in the Connery Bond on film.
Apparently it was true that Fleming was well into his 30s before he actually spent a whole night with a woman. So that's telling about his idea about relationships. And when he got married, Fleming, he basically, it was an open marriage. So he had real problems with commitment.
The way in which they tried to alter and modernise the role of the Bond girl in The Living Daylights to reflect more current attitudes to women is not the only way in which the films have differed from the books. And this calls into question how far the films actually represent Ian Fleming's creation.
The Bond that we see in the films and in the books, it's hugely romanticized. It's much more of a glamorous, fast-paced lifestyle than what being a spy is and was actually like, because much of the art of being a spy is not being conspicuous, and Bond is probably one of the most conspicuous people you could ever imagine, because he turns up in his fast cars, he's always got a beautiful woman draped over his arm. This is a man who'd rapidly become famous if the whole thing were real.
What the books and the films do have in common is the Bond trappings of fast cars and fast women, guns, gadgets, and boats. But Bond was an agent for the Secret Service, which in the films became MI6. So how far does Bond reflect the reality of working in the building behind me? Back on dry land, I'm going to meet someone who'll be able to answer this. Many people say he was an MI6 agent himself, though he, of course, couldn't possibly say. So, Alan, how accurate was Fleming's depiction of a spy back then?
Well, I think the first thing is, was Fleming actually depicting a spy in James Bond? I mean, Bond is not a spy as we normally understand it. We normally understand a spy to be someone who goes somewhere to find something out, to get information.
Right.
Bond doesn't actually get information. He's usually there to kill someone or blow something up or get something, get hold of something. So he's much more like a special operations operative from the World War II.
Right.
And that was the world from which Fleming came as part of the Directorate of Naval Intelligence, a world in which you were doing things, or if you were finding out things, you were finding them out in order to do something about them.
Right.
In the early days of the Bond books and movies, 007 was quite like a real spy. The adventures that he had, this is inspired by the Cold War, so there were all sorts of crazy espionage events going on. But as the Bond films and books go further and the action sequences get a little out of hand, it no longer is based in any kind of reality. There's no spies in the last, 30 or 40 years who are having dinners with the Queen and driving fast cars and sleeping with whoever they want to sleep with and getting away with it. Everyone would have known. So at the beginning, it resembled in reality what some spies were like back in the day. But in modern times, no, it's strayed pretty far from reality.